Hi, it's Barbara McDermott. I am delighted that we have here for our meeting Officer Magana. He's the acting SLO for the North Sherman Oaks area, and I will let him.
Hello, everybody. My name is Officer Armando Magana. I'm pleased to be here, so thank you very much for the invite. And hearing everybody's stories just kind of motivates me even more into the position that I am currently doing. I know that this position is saying that it's acting SLO. I don't like to use that word. I like to say interim or just SLO. Eventually, one day, I hope to be there. That's one of those strives. I throw it into the universe. But I'm here today to basically discuss some things that I think might be pertinent to the area and to the citizens here in this community. I've met a bunch of you before, and we've talked about things, and some of you have been frightened by helicopters flying over their house. And it's always a fun thing when it's something that's very remembering. That always is a good thing. So, but I'm going to go ahead and start off tonight with some crime stats. And basically right now in the area of Northern Sherman Oaks, because Officer Saldana maintains the southern end, Northern Sherman Oaks, basically we're down everywhere across the board. And I know that sounds great, but we are getting close to breaking even or even going over. Right now, our violent crime is down about 40%, which is awesome. It means that there hasn't been as many robberies or violent attacks on people and things of that nature. Then we have our property crime, which is basically just that, like burglaries and things of such. And we're down about almost 3% on that. Again, it's still a negative number, which is great, but I'd like to I try to get it down lower, and the less victims, the better. And our Part 1 crimes, which is basically theft from motor vehicles and all that other stuff, is down about 7%. I send out weekly emails to people in my group regarding tips and things of that nature to try to assist with maybe reminding, and that's my whole thing. But the crime stats right now are looking good, but it's the beginning of the year. So I always like to say, hey, that's great that we're down. Let's keep it going. And that usually takes not just the police department, but it also takes the citizens itself, which I'll get into here shortly. I know they're just kind of numbers at this moment, but does anybody have any questions regarding those percentages or those stats at this moment? Okay, I'll continue on. Let me just kind of give a brief structure of how LAPD and the SLOs work. LAPD obviously is a department of a law enforcement agency. What we have enacted a while back is called a senior lead officer position, and that's what I'm actually doing at this moment. I know people have heard about SLOs and kind of see what they do, but we are an integral interaction regarding the community that we actually work with. That's why we're broken up into different areas. So in our division, we have roughly 7 different areas in Van Nuys alone, and each area has its own senior lead officer. That senior lead officer is actually there to assist not only with just calls, but to actually, in instances like this, have a liaison with like block captains or business owners and things of that nature, so that we can directly intervene and help with that. And it's not having to wait for a unit to come out or having to do things like that. But we also assist with mediation and other things of that nature. What we do as a SLO and interacting with like this, with all the block captains, is just that, direct contact. We can discuss things with block captains because sometimes your neighbors are more apt to talk to you, or you have a better time frame to be able to discuss issues with them, and then you can consolidate those and bring those to us as a SLO. My main job is to actually work with issues and problems that are in your area. If there's an issue with, just as an example, there's trash left somewhere. There's different things that we can do, and there's different things that we can work with so that we can get that cleaned up and fixed immediately. If there's ongoing problems in the neighborhood with speeding or things of that nature, I've talked to a few of you, and you guys are phenomenal. Like I've mentioned before, the block captains that I've talked to and just the interaction in general is beyond recognition. You guys do an outstanding job, and I appreciate that from this side of the house. From law enforcement, having people that are as active as you guys is, there's no words for it. When we do have issues, though, there are different things to be able to do. So we also have a 911 line, which everybody knows, and that's our emergency line. That's if things are happening immediately at that point. Call 911 if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, or what we like to call a non-emergency, then we have another number that's 877 Ask LAPD. With that, what it does is it goes to our dispatch, and we can dispatch out a unit as soon as possible. Now, I have to remind people that they have codes for radio calls. We have a non-coded, which is basically this person's in the area. Then we have a code 2 call where like, hey, this person looks like he might be just trying to break into a house. And then we have code 3, which is this person is in the house. So what I like to tell people is if you do call police, please be very descriptive of what's going on so that way it isn't, perfect example, you hear what seems to be a family argument in the background and they start talking and the RTO is the one person saying, look, it's just me and my cousin arguing. Come to find out that the person actually heard the name of the cousin and started using it over the phone. So they made it a non-coded. This guy actually had broke into their house and was beating up their grandfather. So we have to be very descriptive of what's going on so that we can actually get the proper coding for those officers and they know what's going on. Also, some of the other things that we have access for, not only that helps us immensely, but as well as citizens, is we also have our lapdonline.org. And at that point, we can actually do reports. So you can, if you have a car broken into or something to that effect, you can actually go online and file a police report, and it'll have a valid DR number and everything of that nature. Because if something's not completed correctly, it'll kick it back and tell you that that's not correct, and that way you can correct it. The problem that we're running into, and it's a little bit, I like to think of it as a glitch. I think that they weren't thinking ahead, but when they designed the program, it doesn't allow you, for instance, if you have Ring or video, something of that nature that to provide, it won't allow you to file the report online if there's video involved. What I've been telling people is this: let's get you that report as soon as possible so that you can do what you need. So let's file that report. When it says for video, say no. And what we can do after that is we can either send it to the Van Nuys detectives to each individual table, and I can get with everybody later. I'll send it out in an email regarding the emails of the detectives' desks. That way you can email it straight to the detectives and not have to be hindered by waiting for a unit or doing anything of that nature. So we're trying to help streamline things, but there's always snags with technology, just as everything. But that's actually been very helpful with a lot of reports, and it's being utilized more and more, which helps us to clear up units because right now we are kind of undermanned a bit. So being able to clear up units and have them available for actual emergency radio calls is greatly helpful to the department. Active scenes. Well, actually, real quick, does anybody have any questions regarding anything that I've gone over so far?
I just want to make a comment for like a burglary, theft from motor vehicle. If the suspect leaves something behind, like if there's a tool that he used or something, I think officers would be dispatched for that. So for that instance, if it's after the fact, call non-emergency dispatch. But if they didn't leave anything behind, then do what Magana was indicating.
Yes, absolutely. Because at that point in time, it actually goes to actual evidence. And an officer would need to go out there to collect that evidence so that we can book it. So yeah, if somebody leaves like a screwdriver in your front seat of your car, absolutely let us know, because at that point in time, they can actually try to pull DNA, or they can actually try to pull some sort of prints or something to that effect if they deem it necessary. Not saying they're going to pull DNA or prints from everything, but if they see that there's an MO going on, that there's the same thing going on, then they'll try to do something to that effect. Okay, so I'll go on to the next agenda on this little tirade of mine, I guess you can say. It's going to be active scenes. What an active scene is, it's perceived differently by different people. To law enforcement, what an active scene is if we have an active crime either being or in progress, or if we're containing a scene to make sure that everything is safe and everybody is safe. I know at times we do hinder people's, ingress or egress from their home or to their home. But what I would like is for everybody to kind of understand that at times we can't let people into crime scenes or out of crime scenes. If your car is parked on the street and there was a shooting, every car, every house, everything is actually documented and where it's parked and what it's going on. So things aren't able to actually just leave. So that as an active scene goes, just be patient with officers, because trust me, we want to try to get everything back to normal for people just as fast as well. So what happens a lot of time too is trying to come into a home, and trust me, I've done it myself, is we just live right there. And it might be a house down. But at that point in time, wherever we're locked down at, we have to leave it locked in. So again, I just ask that people be a little patient. And if we ask people to stay in their homes, please stay in their homes. Because what happens is that you have officers with guns drawn. The last thing we want is an innocent bystander to be hit by us or by the suspect. And not only that, if we have a K9 unit out, they'll do a K9 call over the airship. And what happens is a K9 reacts to movement at times. And if people come out of their house, because we do go into people's backyards at times if we're looking for people, and we tell people, stay in your house, because if you don't, and you come out the back door to look at what's going on, the K9 can actually go and bite. And that's one thing we don't want to have happen. So that's just to kind of keep everybody safe, not only citizens, but us as well, so that there's nothing extra that's involved. Just as I always, lock all your doors and your windows, make sure that you're staying inside. And if you do see something in your house, like, hey, I see a guy in my backyard, immediately call 911 and let them know so that we can send a unit, another set of units over there and possibly take the suspect if that is the suspect in custody. Yes, ma'am.
This is Christy Adair with a question. This happened in my neighborhood. Is it best for us to turn all of the outside lights on or just to keep them off? Does that help in any way?
Yes, turning lights on at times helps because it actually helps light up the area. But at times too, it does throw shadows. And what happens is that, like, you might not have a corner of your backyard lit, and it might be difficult for us to be able to see. Now, the dogs can see, and we all have flashlights at night. But the problem is that it just, sometimes it makes it easier, sometimes it makes it harder. I don't have a problem with lighting, but if there is a problem with the lighting, usually like the K9 handler will say, hey, can you do me a favor and turn off all your lights? And we'll talk to you guys. We won't like start smashing out lights. That's not what we do. So, yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay. Confronting the suspects. I know at times people get a little emboldened, and what I always like to tell people is don't. That's like the key thing on that. Biggest issue that we're having too is like dealing with people experiencing homelessness. I am the first one to say, make contact, talk to them, say hello, try to get them resources, try to get them help. Let's assist them, not enable them. But at times we do run into people that are experiencing mental health issues. And that's where we have to, as a community, be able to stand strong and at times be able to back off, because at times we're trying to help as people, but at that moment, it might not be the best time. So if you do run into somebody that's experiencing a mental health issue or a breakdown or something to that effect, or having an episode, call police. That's what we're here for too. And I know people say that they'd rather have a social worker at times. And if they do, we have a pet team in LA County. It's absolutely an awesome unit. If you see somebody that has mental issues and they're being calm, you can call the LA Pet Team. And the LA Pet Team will come out, and they have clinicians that'll work with those people and get them the help they need. When we become involved is if that person becomes violent or they're aggressive or something to that effect. That's when we as police officers are utilized. I've personally responded to a couple places where they claim that actually it's at a school where they have juveniles with mental health issues. And when I've responded, I've talked to them, and they said they wanted to kill themselves. That facility is designed to assist children with that issue. They're not violent. They're not lashing out. They're not fighting. They're not breaking anything. At that point in time, it's not our issue as police officers. We're there to help if it does escalate to that issue. But until then, again, utilize the resources that are out there, the pet team and things like that. And if you have somebody that is actually in the neighborhood that knows them, it's like a family member, because that's what happens. They tend to stay closer to family. That family member can actually call their doctor and actually have them put on a hold as well. So dealing with suspects and with people experiencing homelessness, if you feel that there's an aggression, suspects do not confront. Don't tackle them. Don't try to help us out. We have radios. We have plenty of officers that can handle the situation. I would suggest not getting involved. And even like if I'm off duty and I see something happening, I would still be more of an observer than a participant. And I would just say, hey, that person went this way or that way. This is what they're wearing, and be more helpful in that aspect than not getting involved. We've had a lot of assistance from citizens by basically saying, hey, that person's hiding over there, and this is what they're wearing, and it's worked out great. But to get involved, I'd say try not to. the importance of filing police reports. I know some people think, well, I just got a pair of sunglasses. It's not a big deal.
Officer, can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, can you tell me what does the acronym for PET stand for?
It's a psychological evaluation team.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir. That was a good test. I like that. I had to think for a second. I wasn't ready.
I work with STAR teams, so everybody's got their acronyms. It's always good to know what they are.
Yeah, every person has acronyms. They're cool. The more acronyms you have, the better off you are, right?
This is Barbara McDermott here. Can I ask a question on the previous subject about if there's an active scene? I see a lot of people posting online during active scenes and posting where the police are and posting what they're hearing on the scanner, and it always makes me cringe.
Yes. If you could avoid that, that would be great. What happens is that it goes from starting out saying, hey, there's police activity on Hesby and Van Nuys. And everybody says, well, what's going on? Doing the social media thing like that at point in times draws people out more. And because everybody wants to know what's going on. I know initially that it starts out as we're trying to be helpful to keep people away. But I mean, everybody loves a good show. So the minute you hear that there's a bunch of police activity at this area, everybody wants to go. And then if you're a neighbor, I tell people all the time, trust me, as the SLO right now, I would be more than happy to inform you. But if you're a neighbor and something's happening next door, what do we all want to do? We want to know what's going on. And you're like, hey, is everything okay? Are we safe? Completely understand. But we have to be a little patient. And what'll happen is towards the end of everything winding down, if you walk up to an officer and say, hey, can I ask what's going on now? They'll be more than happy to talk to you, or they should. And if not, I'm always available.
Kira Durbin, did you have a question?
Okay, thank you, Jesse. I've never heard it called the PET team before. Can you just clarify what would be the correct number for people to call?
Let me see if I can pull that up for you real quick.
I mean, obviously, if it was a dangerous situation or if someone was in danger, I think you would want to call 911.
Absolutely.
If you see someone and you are thinking they may be in distress, but it's maybe not a non-emergency, and that's probably not my call to make, but what would be the initial call to make, do you think?
I'm trying to pull that up for you here. I'm on there. I have all their info, but it's just telling me. Oh, so to call there, they're going to have an outreach team. It's going to be 213-738-4775.
213-738-4775.
Correct.
Okay, and is that going to be like, you know, when we make outreach requests, it can be 2 to 3 days before they come, but
At times.
Because I think Jose just had training for that, for mental illness evaluation. So if you call that 213 number, do you think someone can be getting out there pretty quickly, or what's your opinion?
So as far as getting out there quickly, it's all a matter of perspective. It could be a day to 3 days, and that could be pretty quick. My goal here is when I actually do an outreach for mental illness, at times it depends, again, the severity. If it is severe enough to where they're aggressive or they're violent, then it's going to be an immediate police officer transport to the hospital and placed on a 5150 hold. If it seems that this person is just having issues and that they are able to somewhat maintain themselves, then we could put in a referral to have a PET team come out. And again, it depends on their call load as well as the availability and what clinicians that they have available.
And then is there a way to follow up on that? Because when we do homeless outreach, we constantly get asked, you know, I made an outreach request, what happened after that? And LASA and, you know, LA Family Housing will always tell us we can't answer that question because it's protected by HIPAA rules. So
Yeah.
it's going to be the same situation there. And thank you for answering all of my questions.
Oh, no problem. That's exactly what I'm here for. I'm here to add, because if you have a question, somebody else might have that same exact question. And I like to tell people, I don't like to be transparent. I like to be informative. So the more information we put out, the better it is for everybody. So yes, absolutely. The HIPAA laws won't allow them to know, like to tell you what's going on. Is everybody familiar with LA Hop, the online? If you go to, I think it's lahop.com. Let me make sure, just so I'm not.
Yeah, or you can call 211.
Or call 211. Yeah.
Mm.
So if you can go on 211, or you can actually go online to LA Hop. And what you can do as a citizen is put in a referral. And that's just by you driving by, you see Mr. John Doe sitting on the side of the road, you know he's experiencing homelessness. You get his description, you get his location, you say, hey, I think he might need some services. Those things go in, and different organizations actually pull from this pool of referrals. When you have a pool of referrals, though, it could be LASA, it could be LA Family Housing, it could be Penny Lane, it could be anybody that's getting these. So what happens, though, is that they send an outreach team. And trust me, I've dealt with this personally, where at times the outreach team might be on top of it and go literally that next day, or the second day, actually. I've had referrals in on Friday and Saturday, and on Monday they were already being contacted, which is phenomenal. But the problem is that sometimes there's a disconnect between the outreach and navigation. And so the outreach thinks, okay, I've already put my information in. Navigation is supposed to be picking it up and getting these people into housing. Sometimes they don't, because maybe they're waiting for something from outreach, or outreach is waiting for navigation. So what I've been prone to do lately, since especially being in this position, and especially having the contacts that I have right now dealing with all of the different resources and housing groups, I've actually been a little pushy. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, but I actually do a lot of follow-up, and at least once a week I'm calling, and I'm kind of harassing them a little, saying, hey, have you guys contacted these people? Hey, have you called them, or have you gone out to see them? And what I've seen is that there's been a little bit more of a greasing the slids, so to speak, that things are getting done a little bit more now. And I think I have 11 referrals in, and out of those 11, 2 got housed immediately, which was phenomenal. But the other 9 are still waiting. And when I've called back these places, they said it can be anywhere from a week to 3 weeks to get them housed. So we hear that as, oh man, that long. But in all actuality, it's kind of, because COVID and everything else has slowed it down, that's actually pretty quick still for all the things that we have to go through. So yeah, it's.
So would you recommend, if someone does make a pet outreach request, that they also let you know about it? Because that's fantastic, what I'm hearing you say right now.
Yeah, absolutely. As the SLO, I would greatly appreciate that, because I actually have, and I'll even show you right now. Here's my little FIs that I got for all the people that I've gotten, done. And that's my little, I like to call it my Rolodex of housing. And so if you were to let me know that you contacted somebody about a gentleman or a woman that's on the corner of walk and don't walk, that helps me too to follow up. Because if I go out and I talk to my resource and they say, no, I don't see anything in the system, or yeah, it was picked up by LA Family Housing, now I know who to contact and start harassing. And I like to say harassing because I think I'm being a little overzealous on that, but I like to call them and I talk to them and I say, hey, have you done any follow-up? Because as long as they know that somebody is caring about it, and law enforcement is going to be a little different than a citizen. Like, I understand you said, is there a way we can find out? They're not going to tell you, but if I get involved, they're going to be more apt to say, we have outreach going back out there again. So as everybody can kind of tell, I do have a bit of a passion when it comes to dealing with the issue of homelessness. I've had some friends and family that have dealt with that, and they weren't afforded opportunities. And now that I have this opportunity to actually do that, I'm kind of like full force with it. So if anybody here has questions or know of anybody that has questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to discuss the situation and resources that are available. If you have somebody that might need the help, please reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to help and provide those resources. But we'll move on here because I get a little, emotional about it or something, and I just want to keep it going. When we do things such as scanners, I know I had a question about a scanner. I like to tell people the scanners, if you have a scanner, there's different types. Some of the scanners are actually really good and they're really expensive, and they'll actually tap into police radios, not our radios, but the frequency. That doesn't mean for people to get involved. It should be, if that's the case, use it as a hobby, listening to it, that's fine. but don't get involved. Because I actually have a gentleman that's up by Van Owen that listens to the scanners, and he runs out and tries to help us. And he's a great kid. He's an adult, but I mean, great kid. And I have to keep telling him to stay back and stuff. And I mean, he listens, but it's still, he's infatuated with police, and I try to avoid that. But a lot of the scanners also are late. So I remember I was at a call and a guy had a scanner running, and I listened, and I'm like, is that our division? And he said, yeah, I listen to you guys all the time. And I said, it's funny because our radio hasn't said anything for the last 3 minutes. So his is extremely delayed. And so he thinks he's listening to real time and what's going on. And it's not. So I tell people, as far as scanners go, do it for fun. If you're trying to listen in on an incident, you may or may not be getting up-to-date information. If there are issues in your neighborhood, that I'm going to say it like this, that isn't the time to actually barrage your senior lead officer with calls or texts and emails. If there is an issue, get with your block captain, and your block captain will be more than happy to get with me, or advise your neighbors to contact the block captain so that they can get with the senior lead. That way we can do it in a consolidated effort, and I don't have to answer 400 texts or emails, because I do get to all of them. I'm not going to lie. If you call or text or email, I will respond. So I will be busy that day. And so if we can answer to one block captain, again, how SLOs and block captains interact, it is extremely helpful for us to be able to deal with one source than to deal with 100. Like Barbara was saying, she's like got 100 houses under her. For me to answer 100 emails or texts, I will do it, but it's going to be a while. And so if I can just answer Barbara and Barbara can email her neighbors, it makes it a lot more easier. So I greatly appreciate that. Posting license plates of suspects and vehicles that could be stolen. If you guys see something, like they say, see something, say something. Absolutely. If there's an issue in your neighborhood, you guys all know each other. I've seen everybody walking around, and everybody kind of knows who kind of everybody is to a certain extent. If you don't, you kind of have an idea. If you see something out of place, it's okay to call. It's not saying that they're a suspect or anything. You can just say, hey, I see this person. He seems a little out of place. What happens is, especially along Valley Heart and along the Wash, we do get some, either lovebirds, or you get some people using narcotics and things of that nature. If you see something like that, by all means, let us know. And you can go call 877 Ask LAPD. If it's something egregious, by all means, it's a 911 call. If it's an ongoing problem, meaning you go to call the police and then they leave, but then the next day you see those same people there again, by all means, shoot me a text or an email, and we'll start figuring out a plan to fix that. Those of you that have worked with me know that I like to say I'm a fixer. So if you come to me with a problem, I'm not going to come at you with another problem. I'm going to come with you definitely with a fix. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to go somewhere else with that. But I'm not going to bring more problems to the problem. So I don't like to point fingers. I like to ball them up and knock it out the park. So let's go ahead and do that as a community. If I get any information, I know I've talked to a couple block captains, and they've emailed me about crimes in their area. I personally do not have an issue, and I'm saying me personally, because if I leave this position and somebody else comes in, they might not be the same. I personally don't have an issue because, like, again, being informative is huge in my book. If I can tell you what a suspect looks like, or what vehicle is being utilized, or anything of that nature, or hey, we have a lot of burglaries, which some of you have gotten my emails and you see my tips. I always throw the tips in there. There's burglaries and there's no distinct MO. So somebody's not coming up and scratching an S for Superman next to the door every time they break a window. That's like a distinct MO. So everything is just different. And so I tell people, if you have an issue or problem like that, I will disseminate that information absolutely and immediately if it's something pressing. If I have a male that wears a blue hoodie with a rocket on the front, and he's gotten into like 3 cars, you guys are definitely going to get an email saying, hey, if by chance you see this guy, we need to know and call the police right away. And so that way you guys are all aware out there, everybody, of this possible suspect that could potentially either break in and take your stuff or possibly hurt you, which we're trying to avoid. And I think basically, like I said, you guys are awesome. The way you guys operate and the way you guys all interwork together, it makes my job super easy, because then it helps me to be able to focus on other things that I know is issues for everybody, and that way it kind of goes forward. But if there are any other problems or questions or concerns, that's what the senior lead officer is here for. They're here to try to help mitigate those issues. My goal is to try to minimize things for patrol so that they can be available for things. So if it's a business dispute, if it's a neighbor dispute or something like that, get with, have your neighbors get with the block captains again and like say, hey, Officer Magana, I have these two neighbors that are having an issue. Can you come talk to them? And I'd absolutely set something up so that we can meet. I can be a mediator for the issue, and we can totally fix this without there being a couple cops there, or somebody requesting whatever. And that way it's just more of an easy setting. Everybody feels like, okay, the cops aren't here because somebody called being mean. It's that I'm actually there to actually help. So I'd like to let people know I'm there to help, other than, hey, I'm here to be that cop to take somebody to jail. So I don't get a bonus for that. So that's why I don't do that. So at this time, are there any questions about anything I've gone over, or any other questions that I can answer?
This is Barbara McDermott. As far as the suspect descriptions, really distinctive stuff. Sometimes I've seen really distinctive pieces of clothing posted online on social media far and wide. And I've also heard in certain instances from detectives that could be the piece of evidence that ties that suspects to different neighborhoods. And when that's posted so far and wide, then that person can just change that, and it can hinder an investigation.
At times, absolutely. There are certain things that we won't put out if we think that it's going to be detrimental. If, for instance, I say, hey, there's this guy that has this big scar across his face, and he's wanted for, a murder. And if I put that out, exactly right. So in all sense, I'm not going to disseminate something like that personally, because I know that the detectives that I speak with are going to say, hey, this is all under wraps right now. We think we know who we're looking for, but we don't want to spook them. So yeah, absolutely. You kind of got to be a little, we got to put things out in piecemeal at times, but there's other times, like for instance, with burglary for motor vehicles. If I have suspect descriptions of burglary for motor vehicles in my area, and it's like a male Hispanic wearing a black hat and a blue hoodie, I'll put that out there and just say, hey, these are the descriptors right here. But you know what? I could wear a blue hoodie and a black hat, and everybody would assume that I might be Hispanic. Or I could be wearing the same thing and I could pass as white. So it doesn't really matter. It's just more for information. It's not to go out and be a vigilante. It's just so that if by some chance somebody's walking up into your neighbor or your neighbor's yard or your yard, and you're like, hey, this guy doesn't seem like he's supposed to be here, and he kind of matches that description of what was put out, that's when you can obviously notify police. That way we can help with that.
Barbara McDermott again. I also see a lot of, why bother filing a police report? My car was broken into, why bother?
Yeah, so that helps. That helps for a lot of different ways. So now, if you were to ask me, is like, if I'm like command leadership, I'd say, well, I mean, if you don't want to, that's fine, because my numbers will stay down. But as a SLO, what it does is it helps me to be able to track to see what's going on. If I see an uptick of burglary for motor vehicles in an area, it makes me more apt to try to work that problem so that we can avoid this. If I go over there and I say, oh, hey, you know what? There hasn't been any cars broken into in my neighborhood. That's awesome for this last 2 weeks. And then I talk to one of you and you're like, oh no, we've had like 15. They just don't file reports. Then it kind of like, well, I'm kind of behind the power curve now. I need to kind of get ahead of this. And I try to be very proactive, especially in this position. I'm able to. So I try to be very proactive with the crime and try to get ahead of it. Like, we were getting hit hard down south of the freeway, directly south from basically everybody. And I was getting hit hard with burglaries and GTAs. So I actually had units going out to patrolling. I put a decoy car. I did a bunch of different things, and my burglaries went down. So, I don't know if that was a direct reflection of the officers that are out there, or was it the plan that I set in place, or was it just a culmination of everything? And then my spectacular emails that have, valuable plethora of information. I don't know. I put that out there because I think sometimes we all need a little bit of a reminder. I know I do. I forget everything, and my wife hates it. So, I forget. So I always try to remind not only myself, but everybody else, like, hey, make sure your cars are locked. Don't leave valuables inside of it. because like I talked to a gentleman the other day, one of the places that got hit hardest, and he said, well, what can we do about people breaking into cars? And I said, tell them not to leave stuff. And he goes, well, how can you see anything? And so I showed him a van, and it just so happened that the lady goes, hey, that's my niece's van. And I said, perfect. Do you mind if I use it real quick? And she was like, yeah. So I looked over and I go, hey, come here. And I go, can you see anything in here? And he goes, no, the windows are tinted. You don't see anything in the back of the van. And I said, oh yeah, but check this out. And I pulled out my flashlight and I shined it in there. And sure enough, I see a Nordstrom's bag, just a nice little brown Nordstrom's bag sitting right there in the middle of the two seats in the middle area of the van. And I said, if you're a burglar, what do you think I'd do next? And he's like, oh, well, you'd probably, and I go, no, I'd check the doors. And I said, and the doors don't open. What do you think I'm going to do next? He goes, you definitely smash the window. And I go, why would I smash the window? And he goes, that's a Nordstrom's bag. They might have something nice in there. And so that's where we tend to look at. And that's like one extreme, even though there wasn't anything in that bag. It was literally an empty bag. But the perfect example is that I had to take a report about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, where a guy had his car broken into. They smashed the back window and they took his like a bag, like a little carry bag. And I said, well, what was in the bag? He said, that's the funny thing. It's my dirty gym clothes. And I go, what? And he goes, I just got done playing basketball. It's my underwear, my shorts, my socks, and my shirt, and my shoes. And he goes, I changed at the gym. I threw it in the bag, and I came to work and I did some stuff. He goes, and all of a sudden, somebody smashes my window and takes the bag. And I go, but you left the bag. So they assume that it might have a laptop, a wallet, some sort of, whatever. And he goes, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. And so when we have this whole lock it, hide it, keep it thing going on, it's actually meant for that. If you lock your car, if you hide whatever you want to keep, even sunglasses, if you leave sunglasses in your center console, like in the cup holder, or even change, I was prone to that for a while. Everybody leaves change in the middle, or they put their sunglasses in the middle when they get home. Just seeing those things like that, and it entices somebody to just break in. And you got to think about it. If somebody's breaking into cars, they either have a need for money. If they need that money, it's probably they might have a drug problem that they need to feed, or they just see something as a matter of opportunity. And it's funny because the biggest thing that I always tell everybody, it's like one of my big mantras, is I ask everybody, why do you have a lock on your front door of your house? And everybody has always said, well, to keep bad guys out. No, it's to keep an honest man honest, or women, because women can break into cars too. So, we're not looking at it that way, but it's to keep an honest person honest. And I said, because think about it. If I really wanted to come into your house, you think I would go through the front door, which is a heavy, big wood door with locks on it? Or would I go to the side of the yard where there's a nice window that I can smash out and just climb through? And then it makes everybody stop and think a little. And so I tell people, the locks on your car, the locks on your doors, and all this other stuff are to just keep people out, but it's not to prevent people from going in. And so if you can take different measures, and that's where on my tips, lighting, cameras, things like that. I'll be honest, I have 2 min pins, miniature pinchers, and those 2 little guys saved somebody from breaking into my house. So somebody tried to break into my house because I leave my living room doors and the windows open, and somebody tried to grab the screen and like collapse it to get in. And my 2 little min pins, who they think they're full-size Dobermans, chase this person out, which is awesome. Those are my little buddies. But that two 8-pound min pins chased out somebody, and it worked. So it's something as simple as that I tell people, that's just my story. I tell people, do you have an ADT sign? And they're like, no, I don't have ADT. Exactly. But if you have a sign, people think you have an alarm system. And I said, sometimes a ruse is even good enough to help scare people off. What you're trying to do is you're trying to deter people. You're not going to stop somebody if they really want to get in, but you want to do everything you can as a deterrent, so that as somebody walks up, I have stickers all over my house, like on the sides of the house, that say ring camera, ring camera, ring camera, so that no matter where they go or what they're doing, you're going to get videoed. And so, they know that let's go somewhere else. And so they might go to another house where they don't see any cameras. Make your cameras visible. Let them know they're on camera. Put lighting that lights up when somebody walks up at night. And not only does it help you, like I've said in my tips, not only does it help you, like when you're walking up, the light pops on, but if somebody's walking up, I saw it firsthand. A guy walked into this lady's front yard. He went up to the car, he was going to like grab the car door handle. and a light came on and he literally turned around and walked right off again. And I was like, perfect. And of course, that helped immensely for her because she didn't get her car broken into. There wasn't anything else being done about it. Of course, I could have taken a trespass, a hot prowl, but the car was like by the street. So it wasn't like he was in her yard. So just things to think about. I'm always available if you guys have questions of how you can, like I always like to say, harden the target. You have some questions about, hey, what can I do for my house? Reach out and I'll be more than happy to help out.
I have one. Do you have any comments on porch pirates? That seems to be happening every day to my neighbors.
Yes.
Have any thoughts?
My biggest suggestion for porch pirates is they actually have them now and they're very decorative. And I know people don't want to have like a big safe in front of their house or anything, but they have things that you can buy that looks like a seating area, but actually has a lock on the front. And it's a changeable lock. So meaning that not changeable lock, but it's like numbering. So that way what happens is when you have a package coming, you can actually put inside of the packaging, especially for Amazon, it'll say special instructions. And you can say place in the box or place in the seating, the lock seating in front of my home, like in front of my front door. And then the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then as that person goes, they look at the special instructions, they open it up and put it in and they close it and it locks again. Then you can change the lock for the next time. So that way, if you need to, it's all real easy on the back. It's just changing some things on the back to be able to do a different number. And you can change it to 2, 3, 4, 5. And that way you have access to having a secure package. You don't have something that looks like atrocious in your front yard. Because trust me, I don't want my yard to look bad either. So if you have this nice little seating thing, it looks kind of out of place, but it's not so out of place that it's ruining your front yard. But it does give you that option to where they can open that, put your package, close it, and then you don't have your packages being stolen. People, guess what, are all wearing masks. So everybody's a burglar right now, because before, if you had a mask, you were automatically a burglar. But since everybody's wearing masks these days, it's not uncommon to see somebody walk up to a porch and walk away because they know I have a hat, I have a hoodie, I got a mask, and all you're going to see is this much of me. And that's not going to be enough for anything. And so that's a big issue for us right now. So before it used to be like, hey, there's a guy walking around with a black hoodie or a blue jacket and he's wearing a mask. Okay, hey, that's going to be our burglar. But now everybody's got a mask. So I tell people that's going to be like the best suggestion. Or what I tell people is, and have them throw it over your fence, like special instruction. If you're going to deliver my package, put it on the other side of my fence, just toss it over my fence in this area or something. That way it's in your yard. They're not coming to your porch. Or if you're at your porch, you have that locking mechanism or that little like seating area that they can put it in and lock. And that way you keep your packages. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that was great. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time.